They threatened me with a $30,000 lawsuit for bees. Not hornets, not wasps. Honeybees. Pollinators. Because some guy on the HOA board didn't like the buzzing near his fence. My name's Eli Vega. I'm a certified state apiary inspector for the Department of Agriculture. I've got a dozen years in the field, an apiary license, and a badge that lets me shut down illegal pesticide use. But that didn't stop the High Timber Grove HOA from treating me like a backyard outlaw. I moved into Timber Grove with my wife in early spring. Quarter-acre lot, good sun exposure, and far enough from the city that the bees had access to clover fields and clean air. Perfect setup. Within a week, I had 2 Langstroth hives placed neatly behind the lilacs. The first complaint came faster than the nectar flow. A note, unsigned, folded and left in our mailbox. We don't want insects where our children play. Not even 2 days later, a formal violation letter appeared, this time taped to our front door with red electrical tape. It said my hives violated aesthetic uniformity and posed a public hazard. I stared at it, stunned. Public hazard? These bees were tagged and monitored. More regulated than half the dogs in the neighborhood. And the kicker? I'd already submitted my plans to the HOA's architectural committee months before closing. Approved in writing. I walked over to the management office the next morning, files in hand, facts ready. Sir, we've revised the rules since your application, the office rep mumbled. Revised? After approval? She shrugged. The board voted. Majority rules. That night, someone dumped a gallon of bleach on the clover patch behind my fence. What I didn't know, yet, was that this wasn't just about bees. It was about power. The smear campaign started subtle. Neighborhood Facebook posts calling me the insect guy. Someone spread a rumor I was breeding Africanized bees. Another post falsely claimed a child was stung and hospitalized. Then came the flyers, protect our kids, stop backyard apiaries. Knowledge nugget number 1, HOAs can't override state agriculture laws. If your state permits beekeeping with registration, HOA restrictions can be legally challenged, especially if the bees are classified as livestock or agricultural assets. I filed a formal rebuttal with the board. 2 days later, they held an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited. A neighbor, Sarah, who'd quietly supported my work, slipped me a recording. One of the board members, Ron Prater, said, "If we let Eli keep his bees, we set a precedent. Next thing, it's goats and compost toilets." Another board member whispered, "We just need to push him out. Hit him where it hurts." I finally understood. This wasn't about bees. It was a purge. Digging deeper, I uncovered something worse. Ron Prater, Mr. Anti-Bee, wasn't just a resident. He was the CEO of an eco-landscaping company that had just landed a $120,000 exclusive contract with Timber Grove. His entire pitch? Chemical-free turf management, with no pollinators needed. My bees, and the data I submitted about clover yields and reduced pests, made his company look obsolete. My hives were a threat to his profit. I filed a complaint with the State Ethics Commission. In return, the HOA doubled down. A sheriff's deputy knocked on my door with a cease and desist. "You've been reported for maintaining an unlicensed apiary," he said. I showed him my badge. "Not my jurisdiction," he said. "Talk to the county." I did. Turns out someone had forged a fake complaint under a neighbor's name, alleging swarms and stings. That complaint triggered a county zoning review. Knowledge nugget number 2, false reports to zoning boards or code enforcement can be prosecuted as misdemeanors, especially when filed under stolen identities. Demand the complaint origin in writing. I wasn't alone anymore. My inbox filled with stories: tenants fined for herb gardens, one woman ticketed for a rain barrel, a retired teacher cited for planting milkweed. Same HOA. Same board. So I fought back. If they wanted a legal war, I'd give them one. My wife and I filed a public records request. We exposed irregular board elections, Ron had replaced the previous president via a sudden health resignation. No minutes. No transparency. No vote. We compiled statements from 12 other residents who'd been targeted for non-standard yards. We tracked the money. The HOA had drained over $40,000 from the community fund for landscaping consultations. All paid to companies Ron owned. I submitted it all, under oath, to the State HOA Oversight Committee. And then the floodgates opened. Sarah organized a petition, over 130 signatures calling for a board recall. My local beekeeping association shared the story. Then it hit the local news. Headline: Bee Inspector battles HOA over backyard hive ban. Screenshot this clause and tag a friend who needs HOA armor. I posted the HOA's bylaw amendment from 2021, the one that outlawed backyard livestock with 0 member vote. Clear violation. The community turned. One neighbor donated drone footage of my property, showing the hives tucked safely 40 feet from any property line. Another, a retired USDA scientist, offered to testify that my bees were European honeybees, docile and legal. We held an open-air community forum. I showed graphs: pollination impact, fewer aphids, increased garden yields. And finally, I filed a civil suit, defamation, harassment, and attempted interference with a state officer's duties. Then came the day of reckoning. Ron Prather stood in front of the county court, flushed and furious. The judge raised an eyebrow at the falsified documents and lack of public voting records. I'm referring this to the district attorney, the judge said. You'll want a criminal defense lawyer. The room was silent, except for one bee that had hitched a ride on my collar. Knowledge nugget number 3, in many states, HOA board members can be held personally liable if found guilty of fraud or abuse of power, especially when it involves financial gain. A week later, Ron stepped down. The entire board resigned in disgrace. An interim committee, voted in by residents, reinstated my apiary permit and refunded the fines. We didn't stop there. The new board passed a pollinator-friendly landscape ordinance, complete with rebates for native plants. My bees are still out there, working. And the neighbors? They're planting sunflowers, milkweed, and even lavender borders. But the story doesn't end clean. A week after the court ruling, I found a manila envelope in my mailbox. No stamp. Inside, a single photo of me inspecting a hive. Drawn over in red marker, a target symbol. And scribbled below: You won the battle. Not the war. Next week, the city council that tried to steal a solar farm from a dying town.